I actually do have an announcement quickly before we begin. If you're interested in becoming a production manager for us, go to the website, check out our career section, and see if you fit the bill, because we're hiring. Anyway, let's begin. There is no right-wing opposition in Britain. It just doesn't exist. For some reason, the British public just won't vote for it. They won't vote for the Conservatives either. And so everything is... We're going to turn into basically a Labour ethno-state by the end of this, which is not great. Anyway.
It's not good news, everyone.
Yeah, this is not good news. Sorry. Happy Monday. So I guess we'll begin with the local elections. Oh, no. In fact, we will begin with the local elections. But so to begin, there were 107 English council elections held with more than 2,000 seats being contested last week. 58 district councils and 11 mayoralities. 12, including the London mayor. And so this is quite large, but it's not the entire country. It's a significant portion and is good as a kind of indicator of what future elections might look like. And excuse me, good for giving us a kind of weather vane on the mood of the country. These elections are cyclical. So the district councils typically elect a third of their seats on a 4-yearly cycle, and it's not every year. It's not every single one in this cycle. So as you can see, it's kind of, it's a portion of them. And there's been a kind of air of inevitability about all of this, but very little exuberance in victory for the people who were inevitably going to win, which is, of course, the Labour Party, because the Conservative vote is just completely collapsing. And since the Conservative vote is completely collapsing, you might think that some plucky turquoise Brexiteer party might be making massive gains right now. I mean, you would just think, okay, we're going to have on the ground, non-stop, our pro-Brexit, pro-British, anti-Tony Blair, dare I even say, activists are going to go door to door and go, hey guys, we're going to fix all this. We're going to fix all this. You just vote for us. We're going to fix all this. Look at those Conservatives have let us all down. The Labour Party are a bunch of insane communists. We're going to sort this out. And so Reform were fielding 323 candidates. This is their big chance. I mean, out of 2,000 potential seats, it's not that many, of course, but you think, okay, they're going to be tactically placing these candidates, efficient use of resources, so we'll find places where the Conservatives held and the Conservative vote is going to be collapsing and field them there, which I'm sure what they did. And so let's go and have a look at the results. I mean, you see the BBC here aren't even listing Reform at the top. But as you can see, Labour got 186 councillors. Liberal Democrats, the second place party, you got 104 extra councillors. So Labour have got 1,158. Liberal Democrats got 522. The Conservatives lost 474 councillors out of their nearly 1,000 councillors, leaving with 515. So they've lost about half of their councillors. And so why that's particularly important in the light of the Liberal Democrats and the Labour Party is they didn't really make that many gains. Like the Labour Party didn't even get half of those council seats, which is interesting. So not a massive swing to Labour, or not a massive swing to the Lib Dems, a kind of general dissolution of the Conservative vote is what I think we're looking at. Independents got 93 of them. So we've got 228 just independent councillors just running around. The Greens got 74. The Residents Association got 11. The Workers' Party of Britain, that's George Galloway's party, got 4. Reform got 2.
George Galloway, twice as good as Reform, supposed alternative to the Conservative Party. So I think the story of this election really isn't so much that all of these other parties are succeeding, they're sweeping the nation. It's just Tory failure.
Yeah,
the regular Tory voters just didn't turn up.
Yeah,
vote.
And they're not really going elsewhere because remember, like the Labour Party may have gained these councils, but that's not because people are flocking to the Labour Party. It's because the Conservative voters just aren't turning up.
Complete disillusion with British politics.
Yes.
You were saying about those campaigners who were massively pro-Brexit, massively anti-Blairite era, want to reverse
anti-woke,
etc. And my thoughts on this are that we'd done that multiple times. I mean, you and me have been there in UKIP and whatnot when that was basically going on.
Mm-hmm.
I had a dinner with someone who was quite prominent in that whole thing, and I won't say who because what I might say next might get me in trouble if I said.
Right.
Which is that it was their birthday, and so we were all sat around, and every one of the political people who had been through that era as well, and long before we joined UKIP, they were doing their thing, and then go on to other stuff, and we all sat around, and everyone's opinion at the table was that, to say this legally, electoral politics was no longer worth even engaging with.
That is their position and the position of the majority of the British public.
Yes.
Yes, as we will carry on and look into. So the prominent point, I think, here is that the Conservatives are a party that are rotting from the inside. It's not that anyone else is doing particularly well, actually.
There's a few other zombies lying around. Like, the Labour Party is a zombie party, Lib Dems, zombie party.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. They're still lurching, obviously, because they've got momentum of the previous steps that they've taken, but they're going to fall over eventually. So I thought we'd go to... so one thing I couldn't find is an overall turnout for these local elections. I guess it's just no one's done the numbers. So I thought we'd look at the Swindon results, because Swindon, Labour increased their majority of control over the council. So now they've got something 25% extra seats or something. And as you can see, these are really low numbers for the particular areas. So for Blunsdon and Highworth here, as you can see, there were an electorate of 9,000. There were 3,000 ballot papers issued. So 33% turnout.
Mm-hmm.
So that particular one, a Conservative Party candidate, Vijay Kumar Manro, was elected with 1,399 votes.
That's still not too dissimilar. I imagine that's actually a higher turnout relative to the average across the UK, because normally the local elections are about half of the general election turnout.
Yeah, no, the turnout of 33% is about the average for Swindon, which I imagine is not remarkable around the entire country. I think the turnout is going to have been about 33%. So 2/3 of the electorate just like, I don't care who's in charge, because it doesn't affect my life on a daily basis. Everything's terrible, and it always will be.
I mean, I forgot to vote, but I was going to spoil my ballot anyway. So
as you can see in Swindon Central, the Labour Party, 2,000 votes, turnout 39%. Oh, staggering turnout. Coveringham and Dorking, the winner, the Conservative Party, Barbara Parry, 1,400 votes, 36%. Eastcott, 35%. Gorse Hill, 28%. Interestingly, Gorse Hill, not a very wealthy area, and we'll get on to the correlation between engagement in democracy and the personal wealth of the people very shortly. But as you can see, just 30%. Ray Ballman won for the Labour Party there. There's only 309 votes in it between them. It's, as you see, just 30% turnout, 31% turnout, 27% turnout. 3/4 of people just didn't bother. Like, I mean, and what have you got to vote for? Not much. Old Town voted for the Labour Party as well. 35% turnout. That's the wealthier area. Bloody hell. Penn Hill, 24.97% turnout. Just,
I mean, Penn Hill does have a bit of a reputation, doesn't it?
yeah, it's a deprived area, and no one cared. No one bothered, basically. 29% turnout, 37% turnout, 28% turnout. As you can see, point proven. Most people were just staying at home. They're just like, no, this is nonsense. And so the legitimacy of anyone elected on these sorts of numbers, very questionable at best. Not very impressive. Doesn't exactly scream electoral mandate. Anyway, let's go to the mayoral results. So there were, as I said, 12 mayoral elections. Labour swept the board basically on these. But I was quite impressed with the Manchester one, because as you can see, the third place candidate there, new, is some Mr. Buckley, who actually did really quite well, considering he was an independent candidate with absolutely no backing at all, on 7.6%. Look who he beat.
Do you know why?
Go ahead.
So Nick Buckley, you may remember last time we spoke, was a mayoral candidate for Reform. And then they got a defector at Reform. They got someone defecting from the other parties, kicked Nick out, and shoved the defector as the candidate. So Nick decided, screw you guys, I'm going to run anyway.
Good
and he got more votes than the defector, the plastic candidate
Yeah.
for Reform there.
Well, it was a former Conservative. It wasn't just any defector. And the whole sort of reason, the raison d'etre for Reform existing is that it's an alternative to the Conservatives. And if you're kicking people out and then replacing them with Conservatives, it doesn't really help you with your voter base, does it?
Especially when Nick beats you
Mm-hmm.
on his own.
Well done, Nick.
Yeah, exactly. Brilliant job, Nick. Honestly, 7.6% is a really good result for a new independent candidate that is, I mean, it's not like Reform aren't nationally recognised or anything like that. Nearly beating the Conservatives, frankly. It was getting shockingly close. If I were the Conservatives, I'd be panicking, frankly. Obviously, Labour held it. But generally, it was a good day for Labour. They kept winning all of these things. What I thought was one of the mayoral elections I thought was interesting was the mayor of the West Midlands. Now, I'd never even heard of this. So I looked it up. The mayor of West Midlands was created in 2017 by the Conservatives. And so it was held in 2017, as I did say that. And it was held by a Conservative mayor twice in a row. And they narrowly lost West Midlands to Labour. Now, this guy, Richard Parker, narrowly beat him. Knife edge, 1,500 votes. Very, very, very close election. Especially as... what's his name? Andy Street had generated himself a very good reputation. And you might think, okay, hang on a second. West Midlands. What's in the West Midlands? Oh yeah, Birmingham is in the West Midlands. Who's been ruling Birmingham like a caliphate for the past decade or so?
Allah. Through the Labour Party.
Exactly. Through the Labour Party. And how have they done? So in the face of Birmingham, the second largest city in England, literally going bankrupt because of the Labour Party.
It might be the most embarrassing city in all of Europe.
Quite possibly. And possibly the ugliest. Just
Yeah, I can't think of one worse,
architecturally.
actually.
It's genuinely hideous.
The entire continent.
Yeah.
Birmingham is like, ugh.
Well, I mean, there's more charm in like a Venezuelan slum than there is Birmingham. Like Birmingham is just the greyest, most boring city you've ever seen in your life. It's just hideous to behold. And it's bankrupt. So it has the finances of a Venezuelan slum. And it's been ruled over like a caliphate by the Labour Party. And somehow the Tories lost to this.
And this is where the local councils as well had, I think the person in charge of the contracts was Pakistani, and the person given the contract was Pakistani.
Mm-hmm.
They're being paid millions and millions to ferry disabled children to and from school, and it was
In
like
taxis.
a handful of children,
Yeah.
and they're being paid millions for it.
Yeah.
Don't know what taxis they were they, limousines. They had a bottle of bubbly in the back.
It's a massive grift, and it's obvious that it's a massive grift, and the Conservatives could not even win here.
Do you remember why they exactly went bankrupt? What's the thing that finally killed it?
No, not.
It was wokeism.
Of course.
So there were bonuses being given to dustbin men because it's a crap job. Nobody wanted to do it. And some women who were primary school teachers complained that this was sexism because dustbin men are mostly men, whereas primary school teachers are mostly women. And so they got a bunch of other female professions together and sued the council, and the council had to pay them, the court
Amazing.
ruled, which bankrupted the entire city.
Amazing. But it's not like the finances were doing very well anyway up until that point. And so just perpetually embarrassing. One thing I was really disappointed about is that Birmingham Council wasn't doing council elections, which was really sad to see because I really wanted to see the people of Birmingham vote for more Labour councillors because they would have done.
No.
No?
No.
Oh,
You don't see what happened in, what was it, Blackburn or whatever?
Oh, what? Independent
Yes.
Islamic council.
Independent
Yes,
candidates
yes.
swept the entire town, and it's like, oh, why? And you go and look at the footage, and everyone's just screaming, Palestine!
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, okay.
But Bo's actually going to
All right.
cover that tomorrow. I'm going to let him deal with the independents who were victorious. I just wanted to focus on the collapse of the main party.
It has no place in like general elections, like national elections. So to have it at a local election where
It might be more relevant, to be honest.
yeah, this small region of Blackburn, we've been elected for Palestine because, of course, Palestine, they're notorious for caring about Blackburn.
Yeah. And it's just, again, it's just shows you everything about the demographics of the area, really. But yeah, so the Conservatives, so incompetent, such a collapse, can't impress anyone. People would literally rather be bankrupt than vote for a Conservative mayor. Amazing.
When you put it like that.
So anyway, coming on to London, there were rumours that Susan Hall had won the London mayoralty before the results came in because there was an extra day for some reason.
What do you mean rumours?
Well, literally.
Her own PR firm. Who believes that?
I have no idea. I didn't post anything about it, but lots of people were posting on the Twitter that, oh my God, rumours coming out from the campaign staff that Susan's won. Who the hell's Susan Hall? But the problem with the Conservatives, I just have no idea who they're running, why I should vote for them, or like anything. If it is left to the opposition to do the campaigning for them, and I forgot to get the links actually, but they were like, Susan Hall said that, I don't know, some anti-immigration thing was good. And they were like, oh, shock. And it's like, yeah, okay, that's good advertising. Yeah. I mean, obviously I'd vote for her then. She said that Nigel Farage should be treated with respect. Yeah. Sadiq Khan retweeted that going, how dare she? And Nigel Farage retweeted that going, what the hell are you talking about? It's like, Nigel, did you forget you're dealing with Sadiq Khan? The guy probably wants to see you dead in a ditch. Like, of course he doesn't think you should be treated with respect. And anyway, so she had said vaguely right-wing things, such as perhaps we shouldn't persecute our political opponents. And so everyone was getting really excited. My God, we think she may have won. Yeah, well, I mean, obviously she didn't. So Sadiq Khan has now made history. He's winning 3 mayoralties in a row. Not much to say, apart from the fact he only won on an 11% margin, which is presumably why the Staffers Insider or whoever was counting votes was like, oh my God, there are actually quite a lot for Susan Hall here. Maybe she's won this, blah, blah, blah. Because an 11% margin is not great, but we'll talk about that in a minute. The voter turnout for London was 40%, 40.5%. All right, I guess. Nothing to write home about, though. Marginally higher than the average
for Swindon.
Yeah, for the average in Swindon and probably the rest of the country, which again, I haven't got the numbers, but I reckon it's going to be about 33%. And so Keir Starmer was like, not just Keir Starmer, sorry. The Times like, well, local election results, there's big wins for Labour. And it's like, not really. You know, default alternative wins for Labour. Like the Labour Party just slugging themselves across the lines with, right, we're here with one.
It's far more accurate to say big losses for the Conservatives than anything else, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you know, thankfully the regional branch manager of your local Lidl turned up.
That's so accurate. I see it.
It's
Yeah.
just so true, isn't it? Like literally, this is the guy who comes down to tell you that profits are up 3%, so that you get a day off at Christmas. Just, I don't know how to describe it. It's just like he was like, oh, look at our historic wins in Blackpool, for example. The swing towards Labour in Blackpool South is historic. Yeah, historically bad for both the Labour and the Conservative Party. You're losing all of your legitimacy. Like, no one thinks that the British public are crying out for, I mean, God, what's the guy from The Office?
David Brent.
Yeah, that's it. Like like literally a more boring version of David Brent. Like no one's asking for that. And so him being like historic wins, there's no energy to this. No energy whatsoever. I mean, he's only got 7,000 likes on this tweet. He's going to have millions of followers on Twitter. Like there's just no,
yeah.
That 1.4 million followers. Oh, 7,000.
Is that it?
Yeah. He only got 400,000 views. Like there's just no energy in any of this. Everyone's just like, I guess we're going to have Labour for another 5 years now.
Well, even within the sort of Labour Party and the left, he's not exactly wildly popular, is he? Especially amongst the far left. They really hate him, don't they?
Yeah, because at the last Labour conference, he was like, we're going to have a British flag on our thing. And they were like, look at that, BNP. Which unironically is what they were saying. So anyway, yeah, the Guardian pointed out that it is the poorest areas that aren't voting, incidentally. They did an analysis, well, they didn't, but an analysis by Locality, a membership group for community organisations in England, found 20 wards with the lowest turnout in the last elections have really, really high score on the government's index of multiple deprivations. And of course, the 20 highest turnout wards were doing quite well. And this is something that obviously everyone can see. Poor people are checked out of politics because it's not serving them. Mm-hmm. The politicians every day are making their lives worse, and no matter who they vote for, and they keep consistently voting towards the right, well, it didn't work, and so now they're just not voting. And so the rump Labour voters, who are just like, we vote Labour because we vote Labour, they're winning the elections because there's just the opposition has cleared the field. And Reform have failed completely to capitalize on this. It's actually kind of embarrassing, I think, how badly Reform are doing it. The Reform should be sweeping this, but they're not.
The Conservatives really dropped the ball, and there was a lot of space for Reform to basically pick up the mantle and become the main right-wing alternative, and they've just not done it.
There is no main right-wing alternative anymore, apparently. And the thing is as well, right? Turnout in English local elections has not always been this way. Since 2015, it hasn't exceeded 40%, but in the decade prior to this, it would regularly go over 40%. So it's not that people have always been this checked out. It's getting worse. And The Guardian give us a quote from a lady called Abby, who I guess they were just going out to the high street. I mean, literally pushing a baby in a stroller along the high street. She says, "I know nothing about voting. I wouldn't know what to vote for. We're trying to move out. It's not very nice around here." Which is just the story of English politics.
There's going to be nowhere to move to. Yeah,
but exactly.
Who do you speak to who doesn't have that opinion at this point?
I don't know. Like, this is the thing. People are like, "Oh, Swindon sucks." Yeah, but what doesn't?
Well, take the electoral stuff. Like, how many times have the British public voted to lower immigration?
Every time.
At least since 2010. So you've got, 2010, 2015, 2017, 2019.
Yeah.
Brexit referendum. Trying to think what else. So at least 5
Definitely
times.
the EU referendums were swinging very right.
So that's at least 5 times you voted for something, and every single time it's just not happened.
No, it's got worse. It's not that it's not happened, it's got worse.
Exactly. So why would you believe in voting?
I just realised I misspoke. I meant the EU elections leading up to us voting to leave.
Yeah.
That's another one. The
Yeah.
2019 EU elections you're thinking of, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just the case of, I can understand why a lot of people are completely checked out and been like, this is like the Soviet Union. I actually can't enact political change via the ballot box. So screw it. I'm just going to do what's best for me. And what's best for most people at this point is leaving.
Yes.
There would be no reason to stay. It would be foolish. They've got other options.
Speaking of leaving, speaking of not staying, you hear that? That's right, silence. Because there's a vast vacuum where the populist right-wing figure of the UK should be speaking. Where the hell is Nigel Farage?
Busy making money.
That's exactly where. Nigel Farage is hanging out with Donald Trump in America, talking about the American elections, because that's where actual success might be found. He spent the local election week in Florida and Texas with Republicans, and he told the Telegraph the US elections are more important than the UK vote.
Yeah.
It's
Whoever
true.
becomes US president is way more important than who gets into parliament at this point.
But also, it's going to be Trump probably, and Nigel Farage is obviously very pally with Trump, and he'll probably make a lot of money campaigning for Trump.
But also doing this. So Nigel Farage has now become a media figure because that's how he makes his money.
Yep.
He's making a lot doing it. And I can't really blame him.
No, not at all.
I've got complaints of the guy. I'd love him to come and save the country. But
yeah,
from his perspective, I mean, again, all those elections and before, he did his work, got Brexit passed, ran the EU elections with the Brexit party, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then immigration just got completely worse. I mean, he's an old guy. I would be checked out as well at this point.
Yeah, he's 60 years old. So he's old, but he's not that old, right? He's 60. What?
5 years from retirement, but not that old.
Well,
this is what US politics does to people.
Hasn't the retirement age gone up, actually?
It has. It's
yeah.
about 67 now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's not 5 years from retirement because of what
years.
the Conservatives have goddamn well done to this guy.
I just hate that, though. It's like, yeah, he's a politician. Don't worry, he's only 60.
Yeah, but,
It's, like,
but
it's just, okay.
60 is not that old. He's not insensible. He's still got full command of his faculties.
Can't have a 30-year-old politician ever.
No, well, we can, but we just don't. Okay. Nigel Farage is the one who's built up the political capital of being Nigel Farage. He's had his victories. And yeah, I mean, you can't really blame him for blowing like, look, I'm going to have a nice retirement, quote unquote, in American politics, where they're going to pay me a lot of money to be the British guy who got Mr. Brexit, who supports Donald Trump, and who's going to get lots of adulation, have lots of fun in Florida or whatever, right? You can't blame him at all. That's where all old people go to retire. But that does mean that in Britain, there's just this tremendous vacuum where nothing on the right is happening. There's just no one here. There's not a single decent populist figure at all in politics. And the British public are just like, well, okay, I guess we'll just sit here and just get pummeled to death by the Labour Party then. And that's British politics. That's where we are after the elections. Like I said, tomorrow Bo is going to go through the ascendant force in British politics, because it sure as hell isn't the English.
Yeah, inshallah.
We'll leave it there.
you appreciated that episode from the podcast The Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content on the site, such as the Epoch series, this episode on Tiberius Gracchus. If you look to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Twitter at lotuseaters_com on Twitter. Thank you and goodbye.